All right, here we are, Monday afternoon, November 9th, looking at Tropical Storm Eta. Honestly, not a whole lot that's very impressive out there. Let me show you that basically what's happening. You've got your center of circulation right out in here, and a lot of dry air has wrapped into this, okay? So I talked about this actually last night when I was on the air, explaining how this would move and why it'd weakened. The max wind speed at Key West was 33 miles per hour, so this wasn't a strong storm, but at one point yesterday, and actually I shouldn't say at one point, at multiple points throughout the afternoon, there was strong winds coming in like this to the east coast of Florida. Well, keep in mind that, remember, a tropical storm is low pressure, and there's a really strong high pressure up here to the north. So that's more related to a hybrid type situation where, yes, Eta is partially responsible, but really it's a pressure gradient wind. And so the strongest winds were coming into the east side of Florida, whereas around the center of Eta, there really weren't that strong of winds. There definitely were no hurricane conditions or anything like that. And in the end, really rain ended up being the biggest issue down in the southern part of the state. So today, you look at the circulation, it's evident it's there, but all indications are that dry air has come in and wrapped around the center. And by the way, if you're new to this and you haven't been watching me and you're thinking, what does dry air have to do with it? Dry air, tropical storms don't like dry air. Okay, that's really the most blunt way to put it. Let me give you a different view of this. This is the upper level water vapor pattern. This gives you a really good indication of where there's dry air. You see the yellow color on the map? That signifies really dry air. And see how it gets absorbed or wrapped into the system. When that happens, that's a good indication that it's going to be really hard for this tropical system to strengthen and intensify. Let me look at the mid levels. Yeah, same thing. See, look at all that dry air. Let me look at the low levels. Same thing. Lots of dry air. So the point here is, can Eta strengthen? Maybe. Maybe. There's a small chance that it possibly could. If it's going to strengthen, it's going to be right out in this area the next couple of days. There is warm water. Remember, the Gulf Stream comes through like this, and a lot of times there's a loop current of warm water down in there. So that's partially going to be responsible for if there's any increasing intensification. And there's also not a lot of wind shear right now. What I mean by that is, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you'll notice that the clouds that are associated with the storm have actually wrapped around pretty good all around the center. So if it's going to have an opportunity, it's going to be in the next 24 to 48 hours. Beyond that, what's likely going to happen is the storm will sit here and wobble around. There's not a lot of steering currents down the road, but it will try to drift north, as most storms usually do go poleward. So in the northern hemisphere, they're going to try and go northward. Down the road, there's going to be a lot of strong wind shear in the upper levels that will push against it. So that might just totally shred it apart within about 4 days out here in the Gulf. If that doesn't happen, one other possibility is it could just get shredded and what's left of it drift towards Florida. However, that's looking less and less likely. So for all you folks that do live in Florida, and especially the West Coast Florida around the Tampa Bay area, and you watch me, I will say this. All the guidance today is not really showing a northeastward movement towards Florida. Instead, most of the guidance is showing a wobbling around down here for a couple of days, then a drifting to the north, and then actually kind of falling apart or weakening and drifting like this. And that's because if it doesn't get picked up by any cold fronts, which, sorry, hate to say it, Tampa Bay and southern Florida folks, it doesn't look like we have a cold front coming this week, then what ends up happening is high pressures that can build into the north of the storm ultimately will try and push it back to the west. And that's why you might notice some guidance showing that now just in the past 12 hours. So that wouldn't surprise me one bit. But as of right now, out of all the storms we had to deal with this entire season, I would not be too stressed about this one. Was there heavy rain yesterday? Yes, across southern Florida. Were there some gusty winds? Yes, mainly in southern Florida. Will there be moving forward? It looks highly unlikely, but obviously it's still something we're going to watch. And by the way, we are watching a tropical wave down here in the Caribbean. It has a chance of developing, and we're also watching a tropical low way out in the Atlantic, but it wouldn't matter if it develops. It has nothing to do with anybody's weather. So that's it for today, Monday afternoon. I'll show more details, or I should say I'll show more graphics later today, but I just wanted to do a quick little audio for you just to give you an update on what's happening this afternoon. Have a great rest of your Monday.